So we're going to go over how to improve the connection to reduce delay and lag, especially when you're coming towards FC26. At least everything on your end. So everything that you can do on your end to reduce lag. This actually recorded from my FC school actually. And there's a PowerPoint that I put on my FC school. And I normally upload a new one every single year. But I thought, you know what? Why don't you just introduce it this year for you guys? And don't forget, if you want to join the Patreon series, don't forget we are currently making videos right now for FC26. New first touches, new metas. Don't forget, I have played the game, so I do know what's coming up. So we've already started making FC26 content, and we'll be very soon, as soon as the game comes out, talking about preparation. Of course, we've got the real life videos as well, defending principles, and everything that you need to know. Links down below in the description. So you want to get better at FC26 and get ahead of the game, make sure to click on the link down below in the description. Don't forget, if you don't get better after 1 month, we will refund your money. It's a no guys guarantee. But you can start to get ahead now where we go over the full detail, but link is down below in the description. So this whole idea really stemmed from when I read the statistic that more than half of FC players play through Wi-Fi. Now, Wi-Fi is effectively the worst thing you can play. Even if you got a high strength Wi-Fi, it's not ideal. I'm going to tell you how to use some solutions. Like let's say you can't use an Ethernet cable or you can't put a wire through. We're going to go through everything that's here, like high ping, internet bandwidth, TV monitor settings, everything like that. And we're going to go through this in detail. So at least on your end, you can improve connection as best as possible. Okay, so let's start. So at least from a connection standpoint, Ethernet is always going to be the most stable over Wi-Fi. You'll get a reduction in speed and packet loss. You almost never get it, apart from a few odd occasions, which can be due to servers, which is not on your end. And people always ask me, look, okay, but what if I have not got an Ethernet cable? What if, for example, I can't use an Ethernet cable because my Wi-Fi is downstairs and I'm playing in my bedroom? Well, you can use a Powerline Ethernet plug. As you can see, this picture drawn below that I kind of made, but you have one socket, your power, where your power goes in. So your Ethernet basically goes through like a little plug that goes into your socket, and then it goes through your circuitry. So let's say, I don't know, your router's downstairs or router, that's where you're from in the world, but the router downstairs, you can just plug in the other plug in your bedroom, and then you can get Ethernet over the power line, if that makes sense. It's probably the best thing to do. Even if you get a reduction in speed, it's the most stable connection. This is what I was using historically when I went from Wi-Fi before Ethernet. But if you have the ability, try to get an Ethernet cable. It might not look the best, but if you get like a really long wire, like, I don't know, a 10-meter wire, and then maybe you plug it from your router all the way to your room, just when you're playing, for example, or your living room, and you can just take it away when need be. But that is the only thing. That's probably one of the biggest things that people are suffering is packet loss, is because issues like that. The next thing kind of goes to internet users in the house. We're going to go over bandwidth a bit later on. Now, EA talk about bandwidth. Maybe I should just go through it now. So with a low bandwidth connection, other activities using the same network can negatively influence game performance. From automatic video uploads from console to streaming content to other devices, there are many factors that could introduce delay. Now, this is actually very important. You could have a very good top tier internet, but let's say, for example, someone's in your house watching 4K videos on Netflix. Let's say you got a backup and restore going on your Google devices. It could eat up your bandwidth. And what I mean by bandwidth is, imagine that's how much internet you have. If all your bandwidth gets eaten up, you're going to have delay and lag because there's not enough bandwidth left available. Some internet providers have something called a bandwidth bloat or a buffer bloat, where you can have like a certain amount reserved. But that is why sometimes, even though you might have like a 30 megabit internet connection, which is more than good enough, and you could be on Ethernet, you could be suffering with delay because of bandwidth on your end. Something just to bear in mind. So even if you've got the best internet in the world, if you haven't got enough bandwidth, you could be in trouble. So try to look if you could do a buffer bloat. I think that's what it's called for most routers, but just be careful, because a lot of routers, like let's say, I don't know, you have 30 meg. Let's just say in simple math terms for people who are not that technical. If you have 30 megs available and you're using all 30 megs, that's what the issue is. A buffer bloat lets you keep like 1 or 2 spare where you don't use full internet capacity, and allows you to then use your devices. I actually use it, and it's something that I would recommend. So internet users in the house is very important. Try to avoid playing at peak times. It's more of a server side issue, but I think try to avoid playing at 6 p.m. And then server distance. We're going to come over that in a second. So game settings. Now, if you go to settings, online settings, and matchmaking options, assuming they've not changed for FC26, you have appropriate location matchmaking settings. I turn that on. I leave it on yes. And then I always turn crossplay off. Now, you might be asking why. Now, if you play, let's say, on the computer or let's say you're playing on PC, then I understand why you want it on. The reason why I turn crossplay off is for two reasons. Number one is that you reduce your chance for a hacker if you're on a console. It's very rare, very rare to find a hacker on console, but on PC, unfortunately, on the top tier divisions, it's all too common. So I just turn it off so I don't match someone. You ever seen those videos where players get slowed down? You might see streamers play against them. So if I was you, turn that off. So crossplay, turn it off. The only way that I would say leave crossplay on is, let's say you want to play with your friend, then you can turn it off for that duration. Or let's say you live in a country like Australia, where I know it's very hard for matchmaking in the top tier divisions at odd times to get a game. So that's when you could use crossplay. Otherwise, if I'm on a console, I just turn crossplay off. That's the way that I do it. Finding a game connection indicators. When you load up in the lobby, you're going to get this logo over here. Personally speaking, I think this is a bit of a lie, this connection indicator, and I'll explain to you what I mean. It's not technically a lie, but I can have a 4MS connection, and I've probably got the best internet money can buy. I've got a dedicated business lease line, 3 gigabit up and down. I've got the best of the best, okay? My router is literally on a 1 meter cable. I got the best cat cables. I've got everything in my power. I could have a 4MS connection, and I could still have delay. So sometimes it's not just on your side, but what I'm trying to say is, if you go into a game, let's say historically you get 4MS every single time, and then you get a game with 12MS, I normally back up the lobby and join back in again. It's something that you can do. If you've got like a NetDuma routers, you can see what servers you're connecting to and stuff like that. That's maybe a bit of a higher level thing. Maybe we'll go into another day. And then I always put the connection monitoring on, assuming it's in the same place for SC26, just so I can see what's going on. That way, if I do, even though I've got 3 gigabit, sometimes I've got Steam running in the background. I got, obviously I'm in communication with my video editors. I've always got like terabytes of videos going up and down every single day. So you never know. So just something just to bear in mind. And camera angles cause delay? Of course they don't. The biggest misconception that I quite frankly, I think is absolutely ridiculous how people believe it. But just because a crop camera angle is zoomed out, yes, it'll make the game feel slower. But if you're, that's just common sense. I don't understand how people think that something like a crop camera angle causes delay. People make the argument that, oh, apparently you load more on the... It's nonsense if you're asking me. Then we're going to go over to TV size and monitor. Now, this is actually very important. A lot of you guys got the internet sorted, and I guarantee you 90% of my viewers, I would say, got the internet side sorted. But the issue is your TV settings. Now, if you play on Sky Glass, anything like that, it's the worst thing to do. I played on a Sky Glass. The delay is incredible. It's not internet delay, it's visual delay. What I mean by that is, let's say I got a control over here. Let's say you press the X button. There's an input delay of how long I can actually see it. So let's say I press it now. Normally it should happen instantly, okay? But what happens is, with like a low response time, let's say like 100 ms to 150 ms, you can press X and you will see it a fraction of a second later. That's a big difference. A lot of people have not even saw that. So listen, go and check your TV. I would recommend getting a monitor, like a 21-inch. I've got a 27-inch, 1 ms response time. You don't need like 0.5 or whatever. Just get 1 ms. Don't pay like £500-600. Get 1 ms. You can get a second-hand 1080p monitors with 1 ms response times on literally on Facebook Marketplace, eBay for like 60-70 quid sometimes. So that's what I'd recommend. I'd recommend a 24-inch. You don't have to go ahead and buy the BenQs and the top ones that all the pros use for their events. Honestly, you don't need to use that. If you want to compete and you watch this and you actually want to compete on a high level, then I would definitely recommend whatever monitor they have at the pro events for that year. Make sure you get those ones. But turn off all the motion blur, the power save, because power save mode might reduce brightness. It can also affect input delay, eco mode as well, noise reduction. I turn all that off. So with AI now, thankfully, it's so much more easier. Literally just just enter the serial number at the back of your TV. You can even ask AI, what's my MS response time? Or look at the blink if you can still buy it, and you can check it all out. The booklet, whatever, the handbook. There's 4K, 4040p, 144 hertz, all that nonsense. Well, not nonsense really, but I play in 1440p, 120 hertz. Yes, on PC, it can technically feel a bit more responsive because of the higher hertz, but we'll come on to that another day. But anyway, most modern TVs have a game mode setting. Definitely turn that on. It should be somewhere on your TV. Just if you got your remote in your hand, you improvise here, bam. So I got the Philips Ambilight. I'm just going to press the menu, and for example, I go to display, I will find out that under display there's a game mode setting, so you can turn it on. So make sure you turn it on all the time. Always check that. Then it comes to monitor sizes. So I'll just quickly go over this quickly. Long story short, the bigger the TV, the harder it is to see. But you need to figure out how far you sit from the TV. If you're sitting in a mansion and you got like a rocking chair all at the back and you got an 80-inch TV, then that might be your best bet. But if you're sitting right next to your computer and you're at arm's length, then you want a 24-inch TV. I've got a 27-inch, and the reason why is because I have it's not 2K, it's 1440p, 144 hertz, and it's arm length. 27-inch for me is a good size because that's when 2K you can start noticing the difference. I think it's big enough. 24 is a bit too small for me, and I play PC gaming as well. That's why I like 1440p, and that's why I don't have a 4K monitor. So even though my TV is 4K, which sometimes I occasionally play the game on, I play the game on my monitor. 27-inch, 1440p, 144 hertz. 24-inch is just a sweet spot, and the use case is it just for gaming. You know, if you're just playing on console, then maybe a 24-inch 4K monitor, which I think is kind of pointless, but for example, might be beneficial. But I think, is it 27 inches where you notice 4K or whatever it is? But generally speaking, a 24-inch 1080p monitor is fairly inexpensive. 1 ms response time with the game mode, you can get that very easily. Just consider, are you using it for TV as well? Because that's why I said, if you're going to buy a TV, I got a Philips Ambilight. I bought this for, I don't even know how much, £700 a few years ago when it was quite expensive, actually. It's quite cheap now. It's got like, I think 1 ms response time, 100, it does 4K, 1440p and 120 hertz with 1 ms response time, I think, something like that. So it could be your TV that makes a difference. All these things that add up. Controller, third-party controllers, technically some have issues. You can technically keep a controller connected to your console. There's an argument of Bluetooth. Is Bluetooth faster? Wire with the new Bluetooth 5.0, it's called. There's something else. Elite controller definitely gives you an advantage if you use it. But just plug your controller in. Internet settings, I think that's basic done. That's the one, the old one. So look, that is the most that you could do on your end, I would say. A lot of it, apart from that, is probably due to the EA's end. Now, when it comes to EA's end, you guys know, when I say delay, does it exist? Yes. There's only so much you can do. You guys know me, I'm an OBS guy. I have done everything. I've spent thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of pounds on my setup. There's only so much I can do without experiencing delay. I live in London as well. You could argue next to the game data servers. So I think there's a server location thing or whatever, or their site doesn't work, even better. But you can click on this. Yeah, their site's not working either, but there's something called online connection quality issues. You can just click on that and you can test your connection. But I think, as I said, I played the game before. It's much more responsive. Ideally, everything on your end, you want to increase responsiveness as much as possible. On EA's end, there's only so much you can do. But there's a few things, and they finally admitted now in offline play, their main reasons because of animations, which we kind of knew about, animation bugs, and also the time between button press and when the simulation processes the input. So we know that. So they're currently working on that. But it doesn't matter how good your Wi-Fi is, don't use Wi-Fi. And ping. So look, if you're on certain regions, sometimes you might not have choice. Like I know, for example, in Africa, I know the ping is ridiculously high, or certain countries, even the US, in certain regions, it can be really bad. So technically, lower ping means faster data transfer and a more responsive gameplay. But in my opinion, although they're not stated this is not always the case. You know this yourself. How many times have you had a 4 ms connection and it feels worse than a 25 ms connection? That's why I say don't play at peak time, 6 p.m. I know some of you guys got no choice, but that's what I'd recommend. But it also depends on your physical location. You might have heard back in the day the old saying, oh, German connection, German advantage. I think in some regions there are advantages, but that's something that we'll maybe get into another day. But I think you can find out where your closest game data center is. If you've got a NetDumo router, you can actually see where the connection actually goes to. But just something just to bear in mind. But anyway, look, I thought I'd just go through this. I've already made this video before. Oh yeah, high quality cables. I forgot to mention that. Make sure you got like a the best Ethernet cable and best HDMI cables you can buy. For the FC26 version of this presentation that I made, you'll see an updated one for FC26. For those in the Patreon, we'll go over this in a bit more detail. But make sure you got the best quality cables, best quality Ethernet cables, everything. Just to, because you could have the best everything, but let's say you got an old HDMI cable like doesn't support 1.2 or 1.4, whatever, it could mess everything up. So something as small as that could actually affect everything. But anyway, this is a few more, the responsiveness and increased animation coverage. But look, that is everything on that side on how to improve your connection. I hope this video helped. Again, look, there's only certain things we can do within our region. I'm trying to give you in life, the way I view things is a statistical advantage in every single point. I'm just trying to give you the highest statistical chance to reduce your connection. That's the way that I see it. So does this eradicate delay completely? At least on your end. At least you know you've done everything in your power in your end and you can't do any more. But I think that's it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget as well, if you want to join the Patreon, so it's patreon.com/NailGuides. We are currently still making videos as well. And of course, we still have all last year's videos, 795 posts. I don't even know I have that many, probably like hundreds of videos on this. So even videos from last year, like the build up, how to go from goal kick, you can use this and pro examples and real life defend examples. Patreon.com/NailGuides, link down in the description. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.